Hello all, I'm Sai and in today's video, I'm bringing to you my TBR for the last quarter of 2024. I have a total of 10 books here which I've planned to read between October and December of this year, and I'll probably not read anything after the 15th of December because I'm planning to reread a couple of books in the last few days of the year so that I have time for filming the end of the year videos. So of these 10 books, the first 3 books will be the book club picks for October, November and December. And for December, I've chosen a very short non-fiction book that all of us can read in just a matter of 1 or 2 days. And the other 2 books are normal in size as usual. So without any further ado, let's get into the books right away. So the first book is the book club pick for October, and for this I've chosen a Preeti Shenoy book because I have not read as many Preeti Shenoy books as I wanted to in the beginning of the year, even though it's been 9 months into the year right now. And the book that I've chosen is When Love Came Calling by Preeti Shenoy. I can actually explain the plot of this book without reading it, but I'm going to read it from the synopsis from the back of the book anyway because I think it'll make much more sense because it sounds very Preeti Shenoy. Pooja, 19, confused, energetic, fiery. Her philosophy, life is complicated and only super achievers have figured it out. Her strict mother sends her to a rural location in Kerala to spend her summer vacation doing volunteer work. Arush, 20, studious, careful, shy. Born and raised in Britain, he is elated when he gets an opportunity to spend 12 weeks in India, a place his parents are from and one he has never been to. When Pooja and Arush meet, their stark differences are obvious to each other. With choppy internet and no other distractions, they start getting to know each other and slowly fall in love. But falling in love and staying in love are not the same thing. When disaster strikes, Pooja is forced to confront the harsh realities of life, while Arush realizes that India is not always the picture-perfect postcard he presumed it was. Desperately fighting to expose the truth and save themselves, what happens to their love? Is it strong enough to survive forces beyond their control? Is it deep enough to drown their own doubts? Sometimes you have to travel far to find your true self. That sounds very Preeti Shenoy to me, and I'm 100% sure that she would have handled the subject really well. I can't wait to start reading this book. Let's just hope that it is as good as her other books. Now the book club pick for November is a non-fiction book. I wanted to pick it up as a non-fiction book because of non-fiction November, and the book is The Travel Gods Must Be Crazy by Sudha Mahalingam, which is a travelogue written by the author. And if I'm not wrong, this book has been written by the author when she was in her early 60s or so. I actually started reading the book and I'm just like 30 pages or so inside it. So I'm very sure that I have to reread the whole thing from the beginning while I'm reading it with you guys in November, which I'm totally excited to because it also has a lot of photographs taken by the author itself along with her friends while she took the trip to different places, which the book explores. It's also quite a short book, so it will not take much time for us to read. From the few pages that I've read the book so far, I can say that the author's writing style is quite humorous for a person from their age group, and it also feels so much fun. I like the writing style of the author because it is easy to understand but not so easy to read. And just see the cover of this book, it is gorgeous. It also kind of goes well with my t-shirt today. So yeah, this will be the book I should be reading for November. Finally, the book club pick for December is the shortest of all the books that I've chosen for the book club this year, and it is Yes or No, The Guide to Better Decisions by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Dr. Spencer Johnson is the author of this super popular book called Who Moved My Cheese. It is an amazing book and it is perfect for beginners. So if you're a beginner to reading books or non-fiction books in specific, do read that book. And I chose this book just because of the author. You can see that this one is also quite a short book, right? I used to be a super indecisive person 2 to 3 years back, but after that something changed in me and I've started making decisions of much better nowadays, and I want to make that even better for myself. And I know that this author has that ability, tact and sensitivity to deliver the message to us as the reader in a much more precise, easy and lucid way for us to understand. So I am trusting the author with that when it comes to this book, and that's the only goal for me out of this book, nothing more. Since it's also very short, we can easily finish reading it in the first half of the month. I'm just crossing my fingers and hope that I can. So yeah, this is the book club pick for December, which is the last book club pick for 2020. Now I'm going to move on to the other books inside the TBR, which consist of both standalone books as well as series, of which I want to talk about a series first because I need to finish reading this by the end of the year because I'm totally in love with this author's writing, and I'm actually 70% into the first book of this trilogy, which is the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang. I'm 70% into the Poppy War, and trust me, the author is just brilliant, okay? It's the first book by her, yet it does not feel like the first book of an author at all in any way. It is written in a different level and it is also super easy to read, okay? It's very different from Babel as well as Yellowface, but she is super talented and skills that the book does not feel like her first book at all. And since I'm like that much into the first book, I can understand the naming reason behind the second book and third book inside the series. I have the entire series. The only thing for me is that all of the books are so chunky. Okay, you can see this one, right? It's over 600 pages long, which will take a little bit of time for me to read, even though, it is super fast paced and so much fun for me. Fun is not the right word to use for the copywriter, I'm sorry, but it is just so engulfing and engrossing that I'm not able to put down the book at all. So yeah, this series is easily on top of my TBR for the rest of the year. Next, we have a non-fiction book again, and it is The Third Door by Alex Banayan. Now, this book was brought to me by my brother last year sometime, and he has read this book like 2 years back or so, and he's been asking me to read it ever since. He said that it is very different from any of the other non-fiction books that he has read, and I want to see what is so good about it. And I've also heard really good things about it also from the other people whom I trust on the internet, especially Manpreet from Indian Booktuber. She talked about this book also again 2 years or so back, and she said really good things about it. It's not that huge a book, you see, right? But for some reason, I have not picked it up yet. I think it might be because of the intimidation that I have, since many people whom I trust have built it up in my mind. And this book, the author basically talks about what super successful people in different fields across the world have done in a different way in order to become that super successful person. Even the tagline of the book reads, "The Wild West to uncover how the world's most successful people launched their careers." If that is not intimidating for me in terms for a non-fiction book, I don't know what else is. So yeah, I need to read this by the end of the year. I just hope that I read it at least in non-fiction number. Let's wait and see. The next one is actually the latest book inside a series, and it is War of Lanka by Amish, which is the fourth book inside the Ramchandra series. And I have reread the first 3 books just in order to read this one this year. I think I reread the 3 books by binging through them in 1 month, and after that, for some reason, I did not pick up this book. It is quite big again, you can see, right? It is bigger than all the other 3 books inside the series so far. I trust Amish Tripathi because he's so good in writing these kinds of stories, but I haven't heard that great things about this book so far. So I want to read and decide for myself. Let's wait and see how it is going. Next, we have a very huge book, and it is Duma by Stephen King. I've read at least one Stephen King book so far for the past 3 years, and I want to keep that tradition going. So this is the book that I've chosen to read this year. Let's see what's going to happen or not. It is also quite a huge book, just like any other Stephen King book. And in this book, we follow our main character Edgar, who's a very old man. And when he's widowed or divorced, I think, he moves alone to this island called Duma, and he's living all alone there. And when he's living there, he starts listening to voices and having these feelings that he has to start painting. And once he starts painting, through those paintings, the history of that island starts unveiling itself. If I'm not wrong, this one also, just like any other Stephen King book, has its own supernatural elements which are trying to grab onto the story and change its plot progression in a way. We all know that Stephen King is great in writing stories within stories, and this is basically the story about an old man whose paintings start revealing the stories of other people who lived in the place where the old man is living right now. So I think the book writes itself. The cover does feel a bit creepy and, frightening to read, so I'm super excited. Let's just wait and see. The next is another series, and I've been reading the series since 2020, okay? I read it in 2020 first, and in 2022, I read the first 2 books. I reread the first book and read the second book. And in 2024, I've read the third book alone. So I just have 2 more books inside the series, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Now, this is a bind-up of the first 4 books. I don't have the 5th book alone in this bind-up, but I can find it separately. So I cannot tell anything about The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because it's basically just like a hot mess all around. And many of the things that the author talks about just goes over my head because I'm not as much smart to understand everything about the series as a whole. But I'm super interested to read it because, I just love the brand of humor that the author has and the characters expressed throughout the story. We have different characters. We have humans, we have aliens, we have robots. We just have AI, which has been written so many years back by the author of this book. It's crazy, it's brilliant, and it's quite confusing also. So I want to finish reading the series by the end of the year. There are just 2 books, I can do it. It's just a matter of time. Next, we have a self-help book in my shelf, which has been sitting for like nearly 3 years now. And it is Ageless Body, Timeless Mind by Deepak Chopra. Now, I have read a few Deepak Chopra's books before, but I want to finish reading this one because I read like 2 or 3 pages of this book only back when I got it first, and it was quite intimidating for me because the author just went very deep into what he's going to help us understand the first few pages itself. That was very intimidating for me, and I felt it super challenging also. After that, I did not continue reading the book at all, and it's been 3 years now. I recently got the audiobook of this one on Audible, so I'm very much ready to go forward and read this book while listening to the audiobook now, so that it'll be easier for me to go through it. He's also very practical in his approach towards spirituality for us to understand it properly from a scientific point of view. So yeah, even though I'm a bit intimidated about this book, I'm very sure that I will get a lot of useful stuff out of it. It is a bit big and frightening, but I'm very sure that I can finish reading this by the end of the year. The last book in this TBR is a super popular thriller book. And when I say thriller itself, so many people just go forward and say the name of this. Okay, I have said so many times that I'm not that much of a thriller reader. And once I reveal this book, you'll know what I'm talking about and why I say so continuously. And the book is The DaVinci Code by Dan Brown. I have read the other books by Dan Brown so far, and just see, okay, this is his most popular work, and I've not even read that by far. Even though I have like a collector's limited illustrated edition, it's super heavy, okay? And the best part about this edition is that I know Dan Brown talks about a lot of real life locations in his stories, and this book has each and every location as a photograph as it is talked about inside the book. You can see here, right? It has so many of them, almost one for every few pages, so that I can get a clear view of where the things are happening. Despite that, I've not started reading this book yet, because again, I know if I start reading Dan Brown's books, I cannot do anything else. Okay, I cannot focus on anything else at all because his books just suck me in. Keeping all that in mind, I want to finish reading this by the end of the year because I have such an amazing edition. I got this during one of the Lock the Box sales online, and I don't think many people have this edition. At least for that reason, I want to go forward and finish reading this book. And once I finish reading the book, I should also watch the movie probably. So yes guys, those are all the books in my end of the year TBR for the 4th quarter of 2024. I hope you'll be joining me for my book club picks in the last 3 months of the year also. And if you've read any of the books that I've talked about in this video, please do let me know down in the comments how they are, what I can expect from them, and if I can do anything that can make my reading experience of those books better. And if you did enjoy watching today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.